Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. If you're new to this channel, I have these live streams regularly, and I also post shorter videos. For those of you who prefer shorter videos, you can go ahead to my video tab, where you will find updates. If you prefer more in-depth talk and analysis and community participation, this is the place for you. The community can share their thoughts and views, and we have an open platform here as well. In this live stream, I want to talk to you about a couple of developments here from Gaza and from Israel as well. Firstly, Israel is continuing day after day to commit massacres. Today, they killed over 17 civilians in Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis is a place that has been heavily hit and destroyed almost completely. Israel invaded it several times in the past 10 months. Previously, they used to claim that it's the base of Hamas. This is the hub of Hamas after the lie of Al-Shifa Hospital failed. Israel raided Al-Shifa Hospital, committed atrocities, barbaric crimes, killing over 400 people, mass graves outside of it, alongside all of the other hospitals in Gaza. Today, they targeted Khan Yunis, and they've been targeting refugee camps and tents. Yet, they're facing fierce resistance. Today, we had an ambush from Al-Qassam brigades in Khan Yunis, in which they recorded killing 4 Israeli soldiers. That's just in one attack. That happened just a couple of days ago, but they published it today, alongside their other attacks with the other resistance movements on Israeli soldiers in Gaza. So although Israel is committing this barbarism against the civilians, they're facing no progress whatsoever. When it comes to the resistance 10 months on, you're talking about Khan Yunis, you're not talking about Rafah or even the north, although all areas still have Hamas presence. Now Israel is releasing more confirmations that the majority of Hamas brigades are operational. We had a report a couple of days ago saying that 21 are functional completely, 21 brigades, and only 3 have been affected to an extent. And with these 3, Hamas are reorganizing and restructuring. We had another report coming from Israel as well several days ago, saying that Hamas are at the same level of power they were at in the beginning of the war. All of these things are massive evidence that this man, Benjamin Netanyahu, was only selling lies. He was only selling lies to continue his barbarism. He will have any excuse under the sun to continue this genocide, to implement what himself and his radical backers want in Gaza. We spoke about the recent statement of his finance minister and minister in the Ministry of Defense, Bezalel Smotrich, that there is no moral issue. As a matter of fact, it's an obligation to starve all of the Gazan population to death, starve 2 million to death. But according to him, the world won't let us. The world won't. So if he was enabled to that level, so they're enabled to commit a genocide, but if he was enabled further, he would starve everyone to death. And now, after Sinwar came to power, looks like no one's speaking about negotiations. Now even Israel is saying, I think where the negotiations are stuck. Although the negotiating delegation, the Israeli negotiating delegation, had agreed on a ceasefire at least 3 times. One of them was over 5 months ago. Then when Hamas accepted the ceasefire, and more recently, several weeks back, when we had this development, and after Biden's declaration that Benjamin Netanyahu agreed on a ceasefire, then they went and assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, the negotiator, only to get who? Yahya Sinwar. They're dealing with Yahya Sinwar, the man that masterminded October the 7th, or one of the masterminds of October the 7th and Al-Aqsa flood. Okay. With all of that, and although Israel is facing an existential threat, and facing the biggest crisis in its history. Many people are seeing Israel ending. Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned about issuing diplomatic immunity for his sons. So we had a report in Israel today that one of their special anti-fraud units called WW3 raided the foreign office, the Israeli foreign office. Imagine. Active, not like previous government, this government. Okay. Why did they raid it, this anti-fraud unit in Israel? Complaints from the staff about attempts to issue diplomatic passports without due diligence. So we heard that Benjamin Netanyahu has been attempting to issue these diplomatic passports for his sons previously, and potentially other close figures. You know, he does deals, and corruption is the way he rules. The way, for those of you who don't know, the way he has a government is he has minister positions without a file. So he'll have ministers of what? Of nothing, just ministers. Why? So they can have a salary of a minister. Corruption, taking away money from the people and giving ministry positions to people just to have a government. Okay. The people were complaining in the Foreign Office. They're saying that pressure is being applied on them to issue these diplomatic passports without due diligence, and some of them apparently were already handed out. To who? To two of Benjamin Netanyahu's sons. And now they're investigating everything that could potentially reach to the Prime Minister. It could reach the Prime Minister himself, Benjamin Netanyahu. Question is, though, would they be able to do something with him? Because when you're in the position of a Prime Minister in Israel, you cannot face such charges. That's why some people in Israel's politics, they tried to make amendments saying that, you know, you can still face corruption, and that if you do face corruption, you can no longer become a prime minister. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to control the judiciary system in Israel. And with regards to that, we had a report in the Times of Israel saying that police raid foreign ministry over diplomatic passports for Likud bigwigs, not just his sons, and PM's son as well. They raided the foreign ministry's offices in Jerusalem on Wednesday over suspicions it had improperly issued diplomatic passports to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's son Yair, as well as a number of prominent members of his ruling Likud party. This is what they're concerned about. Not the war, not Gaza, not existential threat, not reaching a ceasefire, not the Israeli prisoners in Gaza, not de-escalating, not saving the country, none of that. Issuing diplomatic passports. When? Now, in the middle of one of Israel's worst wars. This morning, investigators from the Israeli Police National Fraud Investigation Unit WW3 conducted a search at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs headquarters in Jerusalem and seized materials as part of an investigation into the suspected issuance of diplomatic passports to individuals who were not eligible for them. They were not eligible for them, the police said in a statement. A covert investigation was launched several weeks ago. The statement noted, added that the investigators had searched the offices and seized relevant documents to aid in the probe. According to the Haaretz Daily, former Foreign Minister Eli Cohen will likely be questioned as part of the probe, which will look into how Yair Netanyahu was granted the diplomatic passports even though children of prime ministers over the age of 18 are not eligible. It's against the law. Cohen, who was replaced by Israel Katz in January, ordered diplomatic passports to be issued to prominent members of his Likud party, acting against the advice of counsel from professional staff in his office. Haaretz reported that was back in December. Diplomatic passports are meant to be used by high-ranking government officials to allow them to travel abroad with more ease. Per the report, a panel ministry of professionals adjudicating Cohen's request for the diplomatic passports, ruled against issuing them, but Foreign Ministry Director General Ronen Levy overruled the committee, informing members that he was doing so based on specific instructions from Cohen. Based on specific instructions from Cohen. Among the Likud members who allegedly received diplomatic passport were Binyamin Regional Council Chairman Israel Gantz, Dimona Mayor Benny Biton, Sdot Negev Regional Council Chairman Tamir Idan, and Merhavim Regional Council Chairman Shai Hajjaj. Addressing the Knesset State Control Committee last December, representatives of Israel's diplomatic service pushed back against the report, telling lawmakers that ministry officials had acted legally and within the bounds of their authority. Foreign Ministry Deputy Director General Yossi Dayan argued that there were specific reasons for each of the Likud-linked officials to receive passports, citing Idan's involvement in an initiative to bring in foreign agriculture workers and Gantz's work as head of the foreign desk of the Yesha Council, the umbrella organization representing local authorities in settlements. As for Yair Netanyahu, Dayan explained that holding diplomatic passport would allow the Shin Bet security detail to continue protecting the premier's son when he travels abroad. More like when he's living abroad, man. It's not just traveling, he's based abroad, although he's at an age where he can be a reservist and serve. But clearly, he's having fun. The younger Netanyahu has been in Miami for much of the past year, although the Ynet news site said he was seen in Jerusalem on Tuesday, surrounded by bodyguards. According to the government data, the Shin Bet spent over $265,000 to protect him. According to national broadcaster Khan, Netanyahu has requested diplomatic passports for family members from the Director General of the Foreign Ministry on 4 occasions since 2009. As of last December, there were 5,651 diplomatic passports in circulation, of which 1,462 were issued to non-foreign ministry personnel, including the Knesset Information and Research Center. Foreign ministry representatives told lawmakers that only a few of those were the result of Cohen overriding the panel. The foreign ministry declined to comment on Wednesday morning's raid. In a statement, the Movement for the Quality of Government welcomed the police investigation, calling it an important step in the way uncovering the truth and ensuring proper administration in government institutions. A few months ago, we submitted a petition to the High Court demanding the cancellation of the diplomatic passports issued to political associates, including the Prime Minister's son, claiming that the decision was made in contrary to the recommendations of the professional bodies, the watchdog group said. The suspicion of issuing diplomatic passports to those who are not entitled to them strengthens the claims we made in our petition, raises weighty questions about the corrections of foreign ministry procedures. Speaking with the Times of Israel, an Israeli diplomatic source said that they were, quote, positive our diplomats are doing their best to obey the law. They have no political affiliation or aspirations. Our consular employees section is doing an amazing job all year round, literally days and nights to assist Israelis around the world. There's nothing similar in any other foreign service. If the police and some irregularities if the police find some irregularities, it's a shame. They will have to bear responsibility for that. So they're trying to cover it up. The fact that the man is worried about issuing diplomatic passports to his son and people close to him in the middle of the war, and his attempts to do that beforehand. And this is not the only thing that Benjamin Netanyahu is worried about during the war, by the way. He previously had renovation in his house in Caesarea. For what? A swimming pool. He's worried about a swimming pool in the middle of this existential war Israel is going through, and sending his cannon fodder brainwashed troops to die when his son is bathing in Miami. Another thing I want to talk to you about, and then I'll open the space up for all of you. If Benjamin Netanyahu is not likely to continue with the deal, he had these assassinations. We had Iran threatening with the response. The US is failing to get a coalition to support Israel. The majority of the countries who would usually try and help are not helping. We had a statement from Germany saying it's very unlikely that we have boots on ground in Israel to support Israel against an Iranian attack. And on the other hand, you have a strong coalition with tightening relations. We're having tighter relations being formed by the opposing side, by Iran, by Russia, by North Korea. And when you talk about North Korea, you can talk about China because they're the axe of China, technically. Having these coalitions, the Russians are sending their Ilyushins to Iran back and forth. Reports that they might have advanced air defense systems, radars. Now, reports as well about Su-35s, Sukhois, fighter jets from Russia that Iran was very much interested in. And Russia's clearly returning a favor to Iran for what? Its support. Iran supported them very heavily. And now they're paying back. Where is all of this leading to? This is leading to a global war. And it's not far-fetched. Like it's the global world war now stopped becoming like something, just sensational. No, it's becoming very real, and we even have more indications than World War I and World War II that we're headed to World War III. Because even in the first two world wars, it's not as if everyone was planning to go for a world war. They were preparing for a war. The situation politically was different at the time, but certain events escalated. Certain events led to that. Now, in effect, you have global powers fighting in multiple parts of the world, and it's just a matter of time up until things get out of control. And the United States administration and the elite that's controlling Europe are careless about that. They don't. It's as if they're careless. Although we're having a bit of a shift with some of the administrations in Europe, but they're careless about that. And although you have a rise in criticism when it comes to European countries spending all of that money with the proxy war in Ukraine, the United States administration is still supporting Israel. And now they had a confirmation that they're willing to send them again the heavy bombs, Mk-82, 83, and 84. Half a ton, a quarter of a ton, and 1 ton bombs. For what? For the sake of Israel. And they're trying to, restrict Iran from responding, typical. Going to Iran, please don't respond. Let's not escalate, offering them a couple of things here and there. Instead of going to this genocidal criminal entity committing crimes against humanity and barbarism in Gaza, they're going to Iran. They're going to Iran to try and convince them not to attack. No, don't attack. And this is what I wanted to share with you. Let me open the space for all of you guys for your participation. Again, thank you so much for everyone joining me from all across the world. Fazli, thank you so much for your super. And TT, love from Bosnia, brother. Much love back, my brother, and to everyone in Bosnia. Tony Soprano saying Scott Ritter was not arrested. He was apparently interrogated by the FBI, and he was prevented from going to Russia previously. And I find that bizarre. The man was a previous weapons inspector, worked in the UN. He worked in Israel. Why? Just because he has an opinion that you don't like? And when it comes to Russia, he's actually trying to have better relations with Russia. A man speaks Russian too, trying to bring countries together instead of supporting this war and this hostile approach that's pushing for a global war in Russia, in Ukraine, and now in Gaza too. That's exposing all of the hypocrisy. And they're backtracking on previous promises not to send heavy bombs. What is that? What is that? It's proven. It's proven that they are committing crimes against humanity. And Bill Nye, the highest guy, saying, Mahmoud, have you seen that Scott Ridge's home was raided by the FBI? Yeah, we're just talking about that. They're trying to intimidate him again. I feel he'll be assassinated if he doesn't bend to their pressure. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but again, what is assassinating him going to do? Right? They try and intimidate. Do you know who they interrogated in the United States as well? The Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, an old man historian going there to lecture. One of the people who studied Israel most intensively, right? And he came from a Zionist family, and he decided to become a historian and started to change his view when he started studying 1948, and he studied here in Britain too. Interrogating him in the airport. What is that? What is your freedom of speech? What's wrong with these people? You're talking about a historian too. Kate, did Nasrallah say he will go with or without Iran? Does this mean Iran have second thoughts? No, he said we have an option to attack on our own or with Iran. He doesn't want to give Israel free information. He doesn't want to give Israel free information. So what he was saying is that there's an option. He said Israel doesn't know. Where is the attack going to come from? Is it going to come from Hezbollah or the Yemen or Iran? Is it come from the north, the south, the east? They don't know. And part of them waiting is part of our response to them. And that's something devastating. That's something devastating that some people don't realize the extent of. You're talking about a state that's frozen economically. They've evacuated factories, dangerous materials, bases, some of their biggest bases, 2/3 of them are empty. Some of them, all of them are empty. No one knows what's coming tomorrow. And with all of that, they're talking about a preemptive strike now. A preemptive strike. You started all of this. And you're constantly pushing for things to make it worse, right? And again, you're talking about the enablement. Dr. X, thank you so much. Said love from Brazil. Much love back, my brother, and to everyone in Brazil and Latin America. Thank you so much for your super. Much appreciated. The Maori Muslim, since the mass exodus of this brainwashed society from occupied Palestine, I can't help but think how these people are spreading their hate in the world. When they're across the world and when they're not in the position of power, that's not necessarily going to be the case. Why? They behave like that in Palestine because they have the power to behave like that, right? So when you're living in any other state where people are treated equally, so in Israel they're used to the Jewish supremacy, that I'm above you, I'm above everyone. Why? Because I'm a Zionist Jew and this is the Jewish land. And when they go to another country where they see people with other backgrounds and you're equal in front of the law, you have the same human rights, you tone it down slightly. Why? Because you can't just go and kill them, right? Like they're doing in Palestine. You need to understand that there are limits, and you can't do everything you like. You can't do everything you like, really. Let's go to your next question. Will you, saying hi from Switzerland, brother Mahmoud. Hello, my friend. He said, do you think choosing Sinwar as leader works well with the new Iranian president? Listen, the thing that we all need to understand here is that Iran as a country is a country of institutions, of councils, of law, of everything is structured. Likewise with Hamas as an organization. You're talking about an organization that has democratic elections every 4 years. It has a shura or council body. It has a legislative body. You're talking about a hierarchy, about structure. And one man going here and there, one man being killed, that doesn't affect the whole thing. It doesn't affect the ideology behind them. It doesn't affect the ideology behind them. See? But the thing that I can say about Hamas choosing Yahya Sinwar is that was a massive blow for Israel. You know, they were celebrating for killing the man who was negotiating with them in Iran. And now they got the mastermind of the 7th of October. And you need to understand something about Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar knows the Israeli politics, knows the Israeli society, knows the Israeli leadership, knows the Israeli psyche, knows their psychology. He knows them. He analyzed everything. And when he was in prison, he read a lot about everything to do with Israel, the people who established Israel, the ideologies, certain prime ministers, their life, what was their background, people who were on the left, people who were on the right, and he knows them very, very well. And he has a lot of charisma and dynamics. So, and he threatened them too. That's the thing about him. He is, and he had interviews with the Israeli media when he was in prison. He's honest about his opinion with them. He's honest about his opinion with them. And he even spoke to them about, you know, the truce that was offered by the late Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, who was the spiritual leader of the movement that Israel assassinated again. And now they have him and they don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to say. First, that's a confirmation that he's alive and well, a confirmation that he's communicating very well, a confirmation that he's running the show very well, a confirmation of the heavy presence and weighing that Gaza has in general. It's complicating a lot of things. The fact that they're going to have to negotiating with him, they already found him to be a big problem with the negotiations. They used to say before, Sinwar is dictating all of the negotiations. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Why is he dictating that? Which was contrary to what they used to say before. And another thing here, they tried to stir division between the leadership of Hamas in Gaza and Hamas as a movement in Gaza and the population. Psychological warfare, sending leaflets to people, you know, your leadership are billionaires and they're hiding in hotels and this and that, although they're killing everyone. All of this garbage propaganda. That didn't work. Even with the Gazan population that are suffering, that have been suffering for 10 months. Why? Because they haven't offered them an alternative. That's the thing that, you know, with Israel and its politicians, supremacy and racism and hate, it blinded them. Arrogance always comes with ignorance. They never provided an alternative. If you provided a good alternative, would anyone go to Hamas or resistance or want to fight you? If you had equality, if you had equal human rights, if you were fair to the Palestinian refugees, they had none of that. But no, they choose the hate and supremacy and violence and arrogance and all of that. And they'll get Yahya Sinwar, you know. But we're talking about before how they used to assassinate figures. They'll bring figures that are more harsh in their position. And they did it with Haniya, and they brought Yahya Sinwar. How many times have they done that? How many times have they done that? What does that show you? That shows you that these people act not based on their own interest. Why? Because they constantly feed the people who they want to take down more by killing more and more and more people, instead of, again, providing an alternative, finding a solution, having some self-reflection, going back to history, trying to deal with the situation. It's typical Israel. They've been always doing that, but now it's happening in its worst forms. I mean, the level that we're seeing Israel committing these actions now is unprecedented. And do you think the B-2 bomber of the land in Qatar will be used for striking Iran before the retaliation piece? Allegedly, we have heard reports of that. If they do land in Qatar, I highly doubt that Qatar will allow its space to be used to conduct an attack on Iran. Not. I don't think it would be Qatar. Although Qatar has one of the biggest bases and airports for U.S. Planes and jets. But I don't think personally that they will allow the US to use it against Iran, because they know the repercussions. Iran already sent to the US threats and warnings that if you're going to use any country against us, we're going to retaliate. Bizr, thank you so much. Mac, these dudes from Iran finna go ham. Thank you so much, my friend. For your super. And Kate is saying today's news, the resistance managed to recapture Al Omar oil field, Syria, from USA occupation. Yeah, we heard that, and there are many things changing in Syria. Firstly, we had one or two attacks a couple of weeks back. There are bases that were attacked in Iraq that we spoke about too. And things are changing in Syria. They're having more reconciliation talks with Turkey now, and we're hearing more talks from European countries. Of course, the Arab League had them back, and it looks like we're seeing some sort of a peace process happening in Syria. And again, that could be to do with understandings that happen between them and some of the opposition, some members of the opposition. Because in Syria, even when we talk about pro and anti, you're talking about wide differences. And Infinite Content saying, I live in the US and do not want to war with Iran. Thank you so much, my friend. Yes, and like I said, many Americans don't. We had a recent poll saying that 55% of Americans are not even supporting to help Israel, and sending the army to Israel to save them. But it's not going to happen. Arc Reality, I love your point of view. It's eerily reminiscing of the same play that they run on the black people here in America. Thank you so much, my friend. There is a big resemblance of the United States and the approach with the black community, although there are things that are very different too. But there is a level of resemblance. And there's a level of resemblance in police brutality as well in the United States. And some people are trying to push this brutality to Britain, but I think common sense will prevail in Britain, especially when it comes to the police. Riza, thank you so much, my friend. So keep up the good work, Mahmoud Habibi. Ayuni Azizi. Habibi, thank you so much. Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you so much for your support. And 1984 Sarajevo, thank you so much again for your support. You said a question that concerns me is the USA in on Israel's nuclear doctrine, and Israel stole uranium from the USA for this. Israel knows no friendship, only says the Talmud is to be believed. Well, they spied on the United States. They took down US ships previously. They sabotage in the US. They corrupt the political scene in the United States with their poisonous lobbies. Yet they're enabled. You know, the funny thing is, in the United States, you'll hear people talking about, oh, this person is a Russian agent, or oh, he works for the Communist Party. But working for the Zionist lobby and having the biggest lobbies in the world with so much money buying your politicians, buying your presidents. What is that? All you need to do is go to track AIPAC now. Thankfully, we have more and more people who are active on this front. You know, showing you exactly who's purchased and bought by this lobby. It's absurd. Teshikoma, what's going on with the rape case in the Prior State? No Western government even commented on this. Yeah, no commenting, no condemnation, no highlighting, no nothing. Israel released a video today of the soldiers in Sde Teiman picking up a man and raping him and creating a shield so that the cameras don't see them while they rape him, and put an object in his backside. And then he is taken to hospital bleeding. And that's something small, by the way, from all of the other crimes that they do, by the way. They do all sorts of crimes. But no, it's fine. And they can go to the Olympics and they can go to this. And, it will take a century to think if we're going to still support them with arms and what have you. Yeah, the typical hypocrisy that you see regularly. Marvin Berg says Israel blocking certain people from leaving Israel. What about personal money or assets leaving Israel? Any blockage? Well, Israel technically, if the government would officially ban someone from leaving the country, they would have to issue a warrant. So and that you would know that at a personal level, because if you're there, you can check if you have a warrant against you from leaving the country. We haven't heard about, top certain figures that, they're banned from. As a matter of fact, you had a person in the war cabinet leaving to the United States, Benny Gantz, without the approval of the prime minister, who had to call the ambassador in the US and said, don't welcome him and don't support him. And that's when the US was trying to support Benny Gantz in favor of Netanyahu. And personal assets leaving Israel, a lot of assets are leaving Israel. But again, Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't care. Many people in many industries in Israel and many international companies were withdrawing billions from Israel. But again, the company was ignoring everything. Although the economic situation is the worst it has ever been. Israel, for the first time in history, the Bank of Israel had to dig into the reserves of Israel. That never happened before. But they're in denial. Like when they downgraded them, Moody's, Netanyahu said, oh no, it's fine. The war will end, we will be victorious, we'll eliminate the Hamas, and they'll put the grading back up. The finance minister, Smotrich, he was concerned about the fact that Moody's didn't call Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. And he wasn't even focusing on the economic side, although he's supposed to be the finance minister. What is that? Ramplans, Jordan, Saudis are not going with the idea of putting their forces to control in Gaza for the day after. Egypt will do it under conditions. Who is there to talk about the day after now? What is there to do? Who's talking about the day after now in Gaza? They're still there. Yahya Sinwar is there, Hamas is there, all of the resistance is there, and the people are there. Still, of course, suffering and you know, facing these atrocities and barbarism, but they're there. And Israel's there. What are they going to do? Do Israel's job and start fighting the people? Or go against the Palestinian people's will? That's not going to happen. Hamas and the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian people are there and surviving against the will of the whole global evil genocide coalition. What are we going to do? What any Arab force is going to do? They're going to do nothing. And again, it's about time that everyone starts to speak about the day after Israel. You know, we're witnessing, in my opinion, the end of Israel. And it's best for people to start speaking about that. And, you know, cut a long story short, you know, send your forces there, talk about peacekeeping process, send them to the genocidal country, committing a genocide by international law. You send your troops there. And then ensure that there is genuinely a democracy with equal rights for everyone, for Palestinians, for Israelis, Jews, Christians, Muslims, so that everyone can be equal in front of the law. Because that's the problem, isn't it? There's no justice, there's no equality. Why? Because we don't live in a world that is run by morals or values. You'd be delusional if you think that the world doesn't run based on morals and values and democracy. The world is run by power. And all of the countries who speak about these values, firstly, they're lying, and they're not with these values. They lie on their own population. Secondly, they use them just as a front to show you. We saw their democracy in Iraq. We saw their democracy in Afghanistan. We saw how democratic they are now in Latin America, calling a democratically elected president of Venezuela a dictator. You know, selective democracy, blind democracy. But yeah, that's what people need to be speaking about. Because now even these countries are looking. See, this talk about the day after in Gaza, it was there, you know, it was present heavily in the beginning. You know, Israel's like, oh, nothing, a couple of months we'll do the job, prepare for the day after. Give us some forces or what have you. But now, well, it's not going to happen. Mahmoud, hello Mahmoud, what do you think about Japan not inviting Israel to the memorial and all these counting countries boycotting? Hypocrisy at its highest, total hypocrisy. And for those of you who don't know, the mayor of Nagasaki, he did not invite the Israeli ambassador to the memorial of the barbaric bombing of Nagasaki. Brave man. I think he went to Hiroshima, not Nagasaki though, but Nagasaki mayor. Anyway, typical man, honorable man. Why? Because it's a country committing genocide. I'm not going to invite you to show these sympathy when you're killing people. What do the enlightened Western countries' representatives do? They boycott the event to sympathize with Israel. What low, shameful, depraved representatives. I'm telling you, the elite, the Western elite, is as neo-colonialist and as racist as Israel and its leaders. The elite, the ruling elite. They still have the same mentality. Good on him, the mayor of Nagasaki. And some in the United States are still protecting these attacks. They're defending them. And look at how sick the people who land these bombs. They give them names. Little boy and fat man, they call them. 16 kiloton and 21 kiloton nuclear bombs. They give them names. And they think it's a joke. And they'll sell you the lie that it was necessary to end the war. Liars. Liars. They just wanted to prove to the world that we can use nukes and shut up and instill fear in everyone. Instill fear in everyone to this day. But now you have more nuclear people. When we talk about nuclear threat, I'd be worried about the American nukes. Why? Because they use them. We're obviously worried about the weapon altogether, right? Because we have the capacity to destroy Earth many times with this hideous weapon. And we should get rid of it globally. But who used it? America used it. Killing 250,000 people, having effects to this day, some of them. So good on him, the mayor of Nagasaki, for not inviting the Israeli representative. Teshikoma, do you think the right in the UK is to cover up the rape case in the prior state? No, not that in particular. But the people who are behind, firstly, the rape, how did it begin, the riots? A dodgy channel on X saying that this man is a Muslim and this is his name, and that's spreading like wildfire. All of a sudden you have people wreaking havoc. Although the police declared the names and said this and that, he wasn't a Muslim, he wasn't an illegal immigrant, he was born here and he's Christian and with Rwandan origin. Okay, they still continued. The man behind them, the big man pushing it, is Robinson. And I spoke about him in a previous video, and I clipped part of a live stream where I spoke in depth about him. The man is linked with Israel. He supports the IDF, wears the Israeli flag, gets money from Israel. And we have seen a shift, you know. Although Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, he said many things previously to support Israel. And he probably still does. Not like, you know, he obviously changed 180. Ever since he came to power, we've seen a couple of things change. Like, they cancelled the reservation that the previous government had on the jurisdiction of the international court when it comes to settlements, because the previous Tory government, they argued that the international court, they don't have jurisdiction in occupied territories. Look how malicious they were. Then they began funding the UNRWA. Now they're delaying issuing the exports license to export arms to Israel. Some people in Britain are calling it a quiet embargo. Still hasn't been authorized yet, but it's delayed. Usually that does not happen. Of course, they have legal considerations. And any country that respects law, they will of course have legal consideration, because even if you like someone politically, although it's shameful to like them politically, but hey, you need to have some sort of responsibility in front of the international law. Why? Because you could be next if you support this genocidal entity. That's a big consideration that even the previous Tory government had. As a matter of fact, the representatives in the previous Conservative government, they said that although we don't want to do this politically, but we had advice. And what was the advice? They had 600 legal advisors to the government. You cannot support this country. They're committing crimes. However, Britain started the problem. The British Empire, they handed Israel, Palestine to the Zionist settlers with the Balfour Declaration. Of course, the United States took the role of patron afterwards with the collapse of the British Empire and the rise of the new all-single superpower after World War II, which is the United States, with the New World Order that came to play after World War II. But Israel doesn't like that. So, look what I can do. However, let me tell you something. Even when you talk about these riots, the counter-protests now are even bigger. We're seeing some instances where there's reconciliation, because many of these people are ill-informed, brainwashed, manipulated, misled, and victims of constant propaganda. And when they interact with people from the Muslim community that's being targeted heavily now, they will see things as they are. And to be fair, the government is taking good positions when it comes to tackling down. They probably need more action, but they're not tolerating any of it. As a matter of fact, the chief prosecutor said that we will treat these people. Funny enough, I was criticizing that the other day, but now you're seeing it happening. He's treating some of these people with terror offenses in the UK. Why? Because that's terror. Because you want to inflict your ideology and your beliefs on other members of the community through violence. And that's what they're doing. And we have a person who was imprisoned for 3 years now. Arrests are being made. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not supported by the masses of Britain. Of course, Britain has racist, abhorrent ideologies and some racist people. You'll have that everywhere. Every nation has these people. It's about how appealing the idea is that these people support. So I don't think it will succeed because in general, when you talk about the British public in general, you're talking about a public that just wants to get on with their life, day-to-day life. They cannot tolerate people with these abhorrent views that are trying to impose their views violently. Because who are they affecting? They're affecting communities. They're destroying shops. Over 100 police officers wounded. And in many cases, without the police doing anything to them, they attack the police, attacking members of the public, attacking ethnic minorities. Who is that serving? Destroying the streets, wreaking havoc, shops. So I don't think it will succeed, but the links to Israel are very evident. And if you want proof, look at the number one. Look at Tony Robinson or Tommy Robinson or Yanan Yexley Lannan. What's his actual surname? And his links with Israel that we spoke about again in the previous video, but it's not necessarily with the rape case, but certain positions that the government might be taking that Israel is not liking because Britain is very important for them, yes. Free Palestine. Do you anticipate Iran and Israel, the US, to attack Iran directly if Iran's response is severe? I personally don't think that the US will attack, but I think Israel will attack. I think Israel will attack Iran after Iran attack Israel, and we will be seeing something escalating. I'm not sure Iran would like a classic war with Israel of a back and forth, because for many cases they don't have direct geographic borders with them. That's one. And although they have, of course, the resistance movements, they still have their own decision making too. No matter how tied you are with Iran, Iran is a state, and the movements are movements. But if he attacks, then we might see an even bigger response from Iran, and it will be back and forth. And it could lead to a bigger war with a bigger participation, much bigger participation, and very, very quickly. Very quickly. Wildlife saying, would you see Egypt stopping flights to Iran for a 3-hour period tonight, apparently due to military exercise? I heard that, but it's not just Iran. It's also countries doing that with Lebanon, and many countries doing that with Israel too. We spoke about Poland evacuating its citizens from Israel. Many airlines canceling flights to Israel, including many of the American ones too. Some countries who still fly to Israel not having direct flights to Israel. They're expecting something. And 1984 Sarajevo, thank you so much again. He said, don't forget Jonathan Pollard. Of course not. In the US, was one of Israel's biggest spies in the United States. And for those of you who don't know, some people say that him spying in the US for Israel was linked to a deal that Israel had with the previous Soviet Union to allow them to bring immigrants to Israel at the time. But again, that's a theory. Ernest World speaks out. Russia talked about Iran waiting until after the Arab League summit and perhaps after Russia helps to arm Iran to defend itself from attacks. Well, yeah, I mean, that could definitely be a reason. And we saw the Russian airplanes going to Iran several times, Shoigu going there. And after the meeting with Kim Jong-un as well. So you're talking about China. Why? Because North Korea, again, without China, they do nothing. And China doesn't want to appear to be involved, although they're very heavily involved. However, even with that, it doesn't mean it's going to take too long, because if it starts taking too long, and again, that might be a strategy for Iran, things might go back to normal in Israel, seeing that it's delayed. Are they waiting for that moment for Israel to think, oh, no, we're comfortable and we're safe now and let's do it now? Previously, they responded a week after. A week after. Now, we're over a week. And with every hour that passes, we're closer than ever to that response. Okay, the appointment of Sinwar the day after Gaza, hoping West Bank will be under the control of the Palestinians. Will Abbas step down? Will the PA be under Sinwar control? Listen, the PA operates under Israeli authority and by Israeli demands. This is something that everyone needs to understand. Palestinian Authority in the West Bank operates under Israel. If they lift a finger at Israel or cross any line that's written by Israel, they're done. Their existence is connected to the existence of Israel. And now everything's all over the place. No one knows what's coming tomorrow. No one knows what's coming tomorrow. So everything is in chaos. And if the country that's supposed to be the most powerful, Israel, doesn't know what's coming tomorrow, with a government without a vision for one day ahead, because if they had a vision for one day ahead, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They wouldn't have done anything from the 7th of October moving forward. Nothing makes sense. And you're talking about a change in Palestine and a change in the world. The equation is changing, the unipolar world is ending, and the formation of a multipolar world is happening. And that doesn't happen in hours or just days. It takes some time, but now it's happening. And I personally, I cannot see a solution, a genuine solution coming soon, as in a peaceful one, between Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. Why? Well, because because of what Israel is doing, of course, because of their barbarism, their crimes, their escalation, their recklessness, their bloodlust, and they constantly push for more. They poke for more problems. And again, changes. You never had a country that is in power and is in charge, giving away things without war. Generally, that did not happen. You had levels of war and levels of violence. And we're seeing something really, really devastating now. This is genocide. But again, it's part of a bigger thing, a change that the whole region is seeing and the whole world is witnessing. And it's gonna lead to international changes. It's not just gonna be restricted to the Palestinian people. This is changing the whole thing. Trump threatened Iran that he will bomb their historical site. Do you think USA, Israel will do the same? I haven't heard that threat directly, but I heard his stupid threats of Trump to Iran. I think Donald Trump should just shut up, really. Just shut up when it comes to Iran. He babbles so much, and if I was there, it wouldn't have happened, and this and that. Man likes to talk so much, and he's in line with the Zionists when it comes to Iran. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump, when he was in power, he was one of the worst presidents for the region, and his support for Israel was so intense. He recognized their sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and some people think he's some kind of an alternative when it comes to that. Argue about American issues with him or views about Donald Trump with other countries or what have you. When it comes to Palestine, he's just as despicable as all other US presidents when it comes to Israel. And again, now he received over 100 million from Miriam Adelson, the widow of Sheldon Adelson, the biggest supporter of Netanyahu. And he's still having this escalation to it. And he took down the deal that America had with Iran that started to de-escalate situations. Why are you looking for more trouble? Acting like you don't want this global interference and stuff, but instigating more problems with Iran. He still has the same bullyish approach, Donald Trump. So he's not better than Biden when it comes to Palestine. Larry Daniel, Mahmoud, do you think the US troops are getting awareness of the fraud of the Senate and Congress, all Zionists, and will they end up going after them with force? I see more awareness coming from US troops and veterans. More awareness is happening. It would be surprising if, none of these people monitor what's happening. And again, the other day I was speaking about the fact that the US and other countries would struggle to convince their own armies when they're struggling internally to go and support Israel. They're facing a problem in convincing them to join the army altogether, and even in Ukraine, let alone Israel committing a genocide. So you would have these people looking in. But when it comes to the effects of the Senate and the Congress with force, look, the United States, you're talking about a heavily armed population. And some people defend that in the US. Some people are against it, but the fact of the matter is, it's very dangerous. I mean, you have hundreds of heavily armed paramilitary groups in the United States, let alone people from within the army trying to do something. I think what we saw with the Donald Trump supporters storming Capitol Hill at the time, that showed you that there are risks in the United States. There are risks. And some states like Texas was talking about Texit, right, exiting the union. You could see something. You could see something big. Lots of that depends on, in my opinion, in America, though, in internal politics, more than abroad. So I think the Americans are less concerned in general, generally speaking. Many people, of course, Americans, they have fierce positions when it comes to the US crimes globally, absolutely. But I'm talking about in general. They care about what happens internally. And what the US administration does with Israel brings more resistance from the American people, from all walks of life, and even in the government. We've had mass resignations, not mass, but we have had quite a few resignations from the Biden administration because of their position with Gaza. And many of them were vocal. We've had resignations from the army, including people from the Jewish community from the army, who were again vocal. We had Aaron Bushnell. That was one of the biggest, signs. So there is a risk. And the sooner decision makers realize that, the merrier. However, you have a lobby there. You have a Zionist lobby that has been established for a very, very long time, is enabled, is very powerful, far-reaching, very controlling. They have a blackmailing system going on. They buy people. They bribe people. Again, it only takes to go and track AIPAC and see how much money these people are getting, to a level where they pay people to threaten the prosecutor of the ICC. Do you remember the letter? Proudly signed. It was proudly signed by members of the Congress. And then we saw how much it cost. $6 million US. $6 million US. Bill Nye, the highest guy. Brother Mahmoud, how does Islam look upon non-believers who live an ethical and moral life of building our family and community? Thank you, Bill, for your question. Well, the core principle of, firstly, viewing people in terms of their faith in Islam is the freedom of the religion. That's something embedded in religion. There's a verse in the Quran that says, "La ikraha fi din." There is no compulsion in religion. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. He who wants to believe, believe. He who doesn't want to believe, don't believe. There are certain people with interpretations in the Muslim world who have very twisted interpretations when it comes to certain texts and scripts that are not embedded in Islam and in the Quran. When it comes to people who do not believe. However, that is the order that we got from the Quran. And the freedom of belief is something embedded. And that's there for a very core reason here, because if you force someone to believe, you create hypocrisy. You can't enforce belief. Why? Does Allah or Allah is the name of God in Arabic, right? Does He want you to believe in Him without you wanting to believe? Think about it this way. The true path of belief is by being convinced, by being with reason, with love, with compassion, wholeheartedly. How can you believe in something when it's enforced on you? You can't do that. Then when it comes to an ethical and moral life of building our family and community, obviously ethical and moral life and family, these are core values in Islam as a religion. The way they view them as with people who are non-believers, well, of course it would be better than someone who is a non-believer who lives an unethical life or an immoral life, or because in Islam you think about the society, the morality of society, the values of society, the values of the family are very important. And again, it views them with an approach of lakum dinukum waliya din. You have your religion and I have my religion. And so long as we live in peace and harmony, perfect, you know. As a matter of fact, there are verses in the Quran that clearly say that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, created us with different peoples and tribes so we can get to know one another. Imagine you have tribes and peoples so you can get to know one another. In akramakum indallah atqakum. He who is most honorable in Allah's eyes are the most pious or God-fearing, right? And again, when you talk about someone who's God-fearing, that's neither for me nor anyone else to judge. You know, He knows who fears Him and who has Him in his heart and how he believes. Obviously, that's something we can talk about for hours, but I just gave you a glimpse. And thank you so much for your question. That was from Bill. Could Russia, that's from Larry, and China trick Iran? No. I mean, technically, they could trick them if they want to, but it's not in their best interest to trick them. I'll tell you why. Because ever since the 2022 war in Ukraine, we have seen Iran, Russia, and China coming closer together. They already had a relationship before. Each party had a reservation about this relation. However, with the hostile approach of the elite Western powers towards Russia and towards China and the Southeast Asia, and Iran, of course, they know their hostilities from a long time. They realize that they need each other and that they need to form a stronger bond together. Recently, we had Russia signing agreements with many countries. One of them was North Korea. One of the most significant agreements that they signed with was with North Korea. Why? Because they have a defense pact now. Do you know what that means? That means if someone attacks you, we both defend each other. If someone attacks each of the countries, defense pact, we interfere. And there are many signs, with only if we want to talk about this agreement. Why? Firstly, because North Korea is a nuclear country led by a man who has the power to do lots of things on his own. Okay? The system doesn't work like in many other countries. This is a very, unique system in North Korea. Secondly, that's being enabled by China, if not encouraged by China. Why? Because like I said before, North Korea is the axe of China globally. North Korea has no life without China. China is the lifeline of North Korea. They have nothing if they don't have China. Meaning China's involved without the name of China. But North Korea relies on China. Kim Jong-un was in Far East Russia before Shoigu went to Iran. He didn't go there just to talk about Iran, but Iran was included, including options of needing stuff from North Korea, potentially including nukes if needs be. He also now with this agreement that he has with Russia, they have things to do with trade, technology, food. Okay. Likewise, the ties are strengthening with Iran. The first real harsh statements that we heard of condemnation. I mean, we hardly had any condemnation, but who condemned the assassination of Haniya in Tehran from the big gun? China and Russia, immediately. So they don't have an interest in tricking Iran. Why? Because they know they need each other. To face what? To face the coalitions that the United States is forming. So the United States constantly looks to expand the NATO. The United States is being blamed by China and in effect has actions to have a Southeast Asian NATO surrounding China, especially with the views that they have with Taiwan. And in the Middle East, they know what they're doing in the Middle East and what they have been doing for a very long time. So, and listen, China understands that an attack on Russia is an attack on China. They understand that. And although they haven't declared it, they supported Russia very heavily with the war in Ukraine. So did Iran. Why? Because they know what's coming. You're talking about a country, the US administration, they want monopoly across the world. They want to occupy Russia. It's not like they want to occupy Russia, probably divide it, probably divide Russia and control it. China's having the same thing. They're preparing. They had drills together. Don't forget that after the 7th of October, China, Russia, and Iran that were being observed by multiple other countries too, like India even. And China now has the biggest fleet in the world. Biggest fleet in the world. So they know they need each other. And it's not in the interest of China and Russia to trick Iran. As a matter of fact, they need Iran. Kyle Lynch, how much infrastructure in Gaza do you think has been destroyed? Probably 90%. Well, 95% of the population, and when I say destroyed or partially destroyed, 95% of the population are refugees. You're talking about a population that was already 73% refugees. Now they're internal refugees in Gaza. They were refugees in Gaza from historical Palestine, or what's now called Israel. Now all of them are internal refugees in Gaza, and the destruction is massive. Digital Orientation Resolutions, Inc. What is the story about rebuilding Solomon's Temple? Are they planning to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque? That's a very interesting question. Number one, the location of Temple Mount in Judaism is disputed. The most ancient community, the most ancient Jewish community in historical Palestine are called the Samaritans, As-Samiriyun in Arabic or Shomronim in Hebrew. They live, where do they live? They live next to Nablus. Okay, Nablus in the West Bank with their Arab neighbors. Some of them have an Israeli nationality too, but they speak Arabic and they're brown-skinned and they look Arab, and they have some of the they have actually the most ancient written text of the Torah. And they consider the Temple Mount to be on a place called Har Grizim, Mount Grizim. That's next to them. they have the archaeological evidence to support that. Whereas the people, and that's important because the people who say Solomon's temple, they talk about Al-Aqsa Mosque, even though Al-Aqsa Mosque doesn't have one evidence, and Israel has been looking archaeologically and digging since the 60s. There is not a single thing to show that Solomon's temple was based on Masjid al-Aqsa, the Masjid al-Aqsa territory. Now, despite that, some people are convinced that it's Solomon's. Why? Because they want to destroy Al-Aqsa. They simply just want to destroy Al-Aqsa. It's as simple as that. They want to, they have plans, they have maps, they have planning maps. So you have organizations that are operating in Israel and next to Al-Aqsa with maps of Solomon's temple in place of the Dome of the Rock. So when you say Al-Aqsa, Al-Aqsa includes the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa, Masjid Al-Aqsa, and there's something called the Masjid Al-Marwani. All of them are in Al-Aqsa compound. Now, from an Islamic perspective, Al-Aqsa compound is all of that place. The Dome of the Rock, the one with the golden dome, is Qubbat al-Sakhra. They want the Solomon temple to be on the Dome of the Rock. Okay. They burnt Al-Aqsa before. They destroyed it. They burnt it, they burnt Al-Aqsa. They tried to, and some of their maps, by the way, when it comes to Solomon's temple, they don't have anything but Solomon's temple. They want to destroy everything. People rebuilt it. Now they constantly go and provoke, although many people in the Jewish community, even Israelis, will tell them you're not allowed to do that. You know, as a matter of fact, in Judaism, there's an argument of not even being in Palestine before the arrival of what they believe to be the Messiah. Okay? And the going to the Temple Mount as well. So they have plans, but you have many people, of course, in the Muslim community who are aware of the plans. That's why they constantly go to Al-Aqsa Mosque and pray there, so that they constantly monitor, that they're constantly present. Israel tried to do many things, they have many restrictions, they constantly attack it. It's the Muslims' third holiest site, don't forget that, but they constantly attack it. They beat people there, they killed people there, they threw grenades there. And it's a genuine plan, and the people who call for the destruction are in power. The people who call for the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque, they are in power in Israel. One of them is Itamar Ben-Gvir. Itamar Ben-Gvir constantly goes to Al-Aqsa to provoke, right? Protected by the government. So yeah, the threat is real. Dr. X saying terms like goyim and infidel are so full of hate, like religion used to separate us. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a difference between the Jewish term of goyim and infidel when it comes to Christianity and Muslims. They are to an extent derogatory. The definitions would be different, of course, when it comes to the interpretations. I mean, if you talk about it from an Islamic perspective, some Muslims take it lightly, and they'll say infidel, for example, for anyone who doesn't believe. Although from Islamic jurisprudence perspective, you have to establish many things before you call someone an infidel, right? So some of the biggest scholars in Islam previously, one of them was the previous Sheikh al-Azhar, he had an interpretation for establishing that someone is like an infidel or blasphemous, right? The term is kafir in Arabic, right? Kafir is a denier. A denier. To him, the argument was denying in what? To him, you had to establish several things before you even use that term with anyone. So if you want to say, for example, someone is denying your religion, Okay. Have they heard or had knowledge about the religion? Have they heard about the principles of the religion, the cores of the religion, the pillars of the religion? If they did, were they presented in a good manner, in a thorough and extensive manner that leaves no doubt whatsoever? Do you understand? So it's not like you can say that term on anyone. And that's from an Islamic perspective. And yes, they are to an extent derogatory. And I'd avoid using them because, again, in many cases, you don't know who you're talking to. Really, you don't know what they believe in, what they don't believe in. You don't know, were they considering something, was not considering something. That's why many people argue about the spiritual truth and how much people are convinced in the things that they're reading, right? Because when you're talking about faith and belief, something very personal, and it's first and foremost to do with yourself. It's not to do with, well, at least it shouldn't be to do with people around you or people pressurizing you, right? Or you acting up to be accepted by someone, right? Yeah, from an Islamic perspective, Islam is submission, whole submission to Allah, to God Almighty, right? Direct connection, no middlemen, no nothing. Of course, you have messengers to come and the final messenger of Muhammad, peace be upon him, and all of the other messengers. But then again, the relation directly, you don't have people between you. Submission to him, meaning you would consider him above all other considerations, societal considerations, right? Approval considerations, validation considerations, right? Cultural considerations. Now, some of these considerations, you're encouraged to, approach them with respect religiously. It's not like you can go ahead against the whole, everyone acting like you're holy, right? But when it comes to the religion itself, it should be the priority is the connection between you and your creator. And Ramplant is updating us about what happened to Scott Ritter. Said I stopped live because Scott Ritter just gave a statement to the media. He said the FBI came because he failed to register as a foreign agent. They took his electronics. They try and intimidate people. They try and intimidate people who criticize them and their criminal behavior globally. Democratic or democratic is that? Israel offered North Korea $1 billion to stop giving weapons to the Axis. They refused. That was very impressive. Nobody knows about these things. That's interesting. I haven't heard that personally. However, what I can say is there are constant attempts to buy and bribe people with money. And why is that? And why some countries get surprised? Because in the Palestinian case, they tried that with Hamas, hundreds of millions, control Gaza. You can have money. We can give you more money. Just forget about these national and aspirations of the Palestinian people. Why? It's because from their perspective and from many Western powers' perspective, the absolute and top level of achievement and accomplishment is material. So the more you have a material accomplishment, the better you are. So everything must be interpreted to materialistic stuff. Okay? It's evident. So that's why I have so many crimes across the world, and they have constant greed for more, and they want more and more and more. Materialistic, right? And to them, that's what. So when they go and talk to other countries or certain people or certain groups or organizations, they don't necessarily view that as the ultimate and absolute thing, financial gain. They get surprised because to them it's like, why not then? Isn't that the ultimate thing? And they wouldn't get countries or groups or people acting, for example, based on honor or dignity. They eliminate these values. What do you mean honor and dignity and integrity? No, cheat, kill, do everything to achieve your objective. Just like how they behave globally. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made an offer. They made offers to Ansarullah, known as the Houthis. Do you know what they told them? When they started affecting Israel heavily with their embargo, they went there, they said, international recognition. So because they won't recognize international recognition, billions, lifting off any restrictions on you or any, embargoes that they have. Just stop it. Just stop it. And then they're met with this refusal. Why? They can't comprehend the fact that some people take a moral position. And it's not just them, it's some people in the Arab and Muslim world who can't comprehend that. Why? That thing. And then they start to create these theories that they're all acting and it's all a show. Although these people constantly, like Ansarullah, for example, even when they have a statement, they will say, in our support for the oppressed Palestinian people and in our efforts to end the genocide and siege that's imposed on them by Israel, we did so and so. Wow, it's difficult for some of them to understand. So some of these countries and groups, they take these positions because they genuinely believe in them. They genuinely believe in, human rights and dignity and honor, and go against genocide. Like, what does it? Do you need to have what do you need to have to oppose a genocide? Do you need to be like what? All it takes for you to be a normal person, a moral person with a moral compass, right? A basic functioning compass. So they get surprised when, oh no, I offered you a couple of billion and you're not going to take them. And Free Palestine is saying, do you know which ships Yemen have attacked today? Well, we heard they attacked 2 destroyers and 1 other ship. The 2 destroyers are linked to the genocide coalition, most likely American. I think they were American. And will they attack the ships that the US sent to defend Israel from the response? They could be under their radar too, and attack them. Of course, they're attacking the Eisenhower, they're attacking these, so why not? Because to them, they're strengthening this genocidal entity, committing these crimes against the Palestinian people. However, their declared aim is to have an embargo on them. However, but we haven't seen the response yet. See, all of these are day-to-day actions from them, from Hezbollah, from all of the other movements. We haven't seen the full response from Ansarullah yet. How is it going to be? It could be something bigger than what we saw. We just entered phase 5, right? We just entered phase 5, and they said we have more surprises. We have more surprises. Yeah, let's look at the last couple of ones before we wrap up. And thanks to everyone for your participation. And apologies if I'm unable to reach all of them. Let's see. Larry Dunhill, I think I saw Russia sent warships near Venezuela. What are the Zionist US-led Elon Musk going to do now? Going to stay staring at the oil. They have the right to send warships But the United States send warships, and they have to understand that they have limits. I feel like Elon Musk, when they had a coup in Bolivia to get their lithium, he needs lithium. And there are wars over these precious metals and things like lithium. And there's modern day slavery happening in Africa because of these things. But, you know, they don't talk about it, but they tell you to go and buy an electric car just because it's better for without the devastating cost and without calculating anything. Anyway, he said we will coup anyone we like whenever we like. Just to get the whatever they need, oil, lithium, whatever it is. Typical, you know, arrogant capitalism, you know. It's beyond capitalism. It's beyond capitalism, right? Everyone, you know, free market and capitalism, these people, to them, everything is justified. Everything is justified. And Ramplan saying everyone should boycott X, I did many years ago. Look, man, if we want to boycott everything to do with social media, I think it's gonna be difficult here because you might have comments and criticisms for everyone. But at least, you know, people should be vocal. We'll wrap it up there. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me for another live stream. Thank you to all of our members and subscribers and viewers and everyone new to the channel. Thank you so much for everyone who sent supers, TT, Dr. X, Bizzer, Infinite Content, Riza, 1984 Sarajevo, and Dr. X again. Thank you so much. I'll have a video after this live stream, and I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow with another live stream. Stay safe, take care, and peace, everyone. See you soon in the next video.